It started as nothing more than a relaxed evening with a group of acquaintances. My wife Arya had been invited to a small gathering at one of her colleagues' homes, and although I wasn't especially eager to attend, she convinced me with the promise that it would be fun. The house buzzed with laughter, overlapping conversations, clinking glasses, and the comfortable rhythm of people enjoying themselves. Arya fit right in, slipping into the center of attention as naturally as breathing. She had that energy, that glow, the kind of presence that effortlessly drew people toward her. I remained on the edges, nursing my drink, making bits of small talk, laughing politely when appropriate, but mostly watching. She was radiant, telling stories about her work that had everyone hanging on her every word, her laughter floating easily above the room. I admired her from a quiet distance, as I often did. She belonged in rooms filled with chatter and charm. Then the mood of the evening changed, all because of one supposedly harmless game. Someone suggested a playful round of what-ifs, questions about celebrity crushes, dream partners, and silly hypothetical situations. The laughter grew as everyone threw out their answers. Then, almost casually, someone asked Arya a question intended to entertain. If you could trade your husband for any man, who would it be? It was clearly framed as a joke, but her answer came instantly, without hesitation, without even looking toward me. She raised her glass, smiling with the same sparkle she had carried all evening, and said with an easy laugh, "Oh, I'd trade my husband for him any day." Her hand pointed toward one of her colleagues, tall, broad-shouldered, and self-assured. He was the kind of man who carried himself as though he already knew the effect he had on everyone around him. The room burst into laughter. The man gave a smug little grin and lifted his glass as though enjoying the compliment, while I remained completely silent. The sound of everyone laughing seemed deafening in my ears because, in that moment, it wasn't a game. Not to me. My wife had just stripped away my dignity in front of an entire room for the sake of a punchline. Maybe she thought it was funny. Maybe she hadn't thought at all. But what I felt was something far sharper than humor. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting. Some looked amused, expecting me to laugh it off and take it in good humor. Others looked curious, wondering whether I would react, perhaps even lose my temper. Arya, however, didn't notice, or simply didn't care. She continued sipping her drink, enjoying the wave of laughter she had created. That was when I realized I had two choices. I could swallow the humiliation, force a smile, and pretend it hadn't hurt as deeply as it had, or I could speak. Not angrily, not by shouting, but with the kind of truth capable of silencing an entire room. I carefully placed my glass down, stood up, and in a calm, steady voice said, "Interesting you'd say that, Arya, because if trading me comes that easily to you, then maybe you never truly deserved me to begin with." The room's energy shattered instantly. The laughter stopped cold. The air suddenly felt heavy and brittle. Arya's smile faltered halfway through her expression. Her glass remained frozen in her hand. Faces that had been amused only moments earlier became uncomfortable, even guilty. The man she had selected as my replacement shifted in his seat, suddenly far less confident. His eyes darted everywhere except toward me. I kept my voice calm and deliberate. "I came here tonight because my wife wanted me here." I stayed quiet, smiled, and supported her even when I felt completely out of place, and in return she decided the best way to entertain her friends was by humiliating me. Let me be clear. Marriage isn't a joke, and a husband isn't some prop to be traded for a laugh. Respect is what keeps it together. Without respect, everything else is meaningless. Arya's cheeks turned bright red. She opened her mouth and began, "I didn't mean." I lifted a hand, stopping her. "You did mean it. You said it. You thought it was clever, that it would make everyone laugh. And you chose your husband as the punchline. That tells me everything I need to know about what I mean to you." The silence that followed was complete. You could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Someone coughed. People shifted awkwardly in their seats, their eyes moving toward the floor, the walls, anywhere except me or Arya. I gave her one final look, Not angry, not cruel, simply heavy with disappointment, and then turned toward the host. "Thank you for the evening. I'll see myself out." And I left, leaving Arya standing frozen in the middle of the room, the weight of her own words pressing down on her more heavily than she had ever expected. When she returned home later, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She tried to explain, insisting it had only been a joke, that everyone understood she hadn't meant it. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply told her the truth. If you can laugh about trading me away in front of strangers, maybe you should ask yourself whether you value me at all tonight. You didn't act like a wife. You acted like someone who has forgotten what respect means. She broke down then, sobbing, begging for forgiveness, promising it would never happen again. But something inside me had changed. Forgiveness might come with time. Forgetting never would. Words have weight, and once they are spoken, they cannot be taken back. In the days that followed, quiet whispers spread throughout her workplace. Some colleagues sympathized with me. Others shook their heads at her carelessness. The man she had singled out avoided her completely, unwilling to remain connected to the embarrassment. The laughter she believed she had earned at my expense eventually came back around to her harder, sharper, and much more humiliating than she had imagined. I didn't need to punish her. I didn't have to remind her again. My response that night had already said everything. It had silenced the room, silenced her, and reminded everyone, including Arya, that marriage is not entertainment, and respect is not optional. I don't remember the food that was served or half the jokes told that evening, but I will never forget her words. I'd trade my husband for him any day, and I will always remember mine. Then maybe you never deserved me in the first place. That was the night the laughter died.